Oh, that music. That music is so beautiful. Anyhow, hello everybody. This is Project Evan for part 5 of Last Train Home. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different this episode. The gameplay footage that you will be seeing in this video has already been recorded, and I am now narrating over the footage as opposed to giving live commentary. I hope that this will accomplish two things. One, it should allow me to cut out anything where it's monotonous, certain things that you've probably already seen before, like at this point gathering resources from abandoned settlements. The second thing that it should enable me to do is record audio in a space that is more conducive to good audio quality. Not that the audio quality from before was just awful, but I did have to put a lot of post-processing effects over that commentary in order to silence the rather loud sound of my computer fan. So the mixing for the audio in previous episodes, it's been okay, but it's been a little hissy here and there, and there's been some garbling and static. I would rather that and have the video be watchable at all or fit to listen to at all, rather than voicing that is a little bit more clear, yet there's an annoying blaring sound of a pair of computer fans in the background. So what this should enable me to do is go into a different room with better acoustics and use a different microphone, and then I can essentially dub that over the footage. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to continue to gather resources on the road to Penza, and a gamble that we're going to take is we're going to try to raid that Red Army encampment that we learned about last time. What that should enable us to do is it will deny the enemy some logistics, it will deny them a source of recruitment, and it should enable us also to scavenge some ammunition and potentially some grenades, and we can level up some of our soldiers in anticipation for reaching Penza. Now, the reason why this is a gamble is it is indeed a Red Army camp, and that means that a confrontation with the enemy is unavoidable. So if we don't play our cards right, we might end up getting a wounded soldier or two before we even reach Penza, which is not good, because Moscow was dangerous enough, but now the Red Army must know that our train has to pass through the town in order to reach Vladivostok. So I am expecting a much more organized enemy response by the time we reach Penza. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a quick cut. If anything interesting happens with resource gathering events or what have you, then we will take a brief pause and I'll highlight them for you. All right, so right here, if you know where to look, we have our A-team abandoned settlement gathering team with Alfred Klaus and Magdalena. We found a decent amount of resources there, got some combat role XP. I might do a cut to highlight instances like that where there's something significant, some sort of significant event. But other than that, the video should be significantly better paced, and I can remove a decent amount of dead time if I am narrating over gameplay footage that has already been recorded. So we are going to do a quick cut, and then I will see you when something noteworthy occurs. So I'm assembling a squad to perform the raid against the Red Army encampment, and I've waited until nightfall. When I was recording this footage, my thought process was waiting until nightfall. It gives our legionaries the chance to regain stamina, and it will hopefully give us one or more various advantages when confronting the enemy. First of all, it might mean that their picket screen is thinner. Because it's nighttime, they won't necessarily be expecting a raid, and they might just have men resting by the fire, men who are celebrating and making merry, men who are asleep, and thus they won't have as strong a picket screen or perimeter while our troops are infiltrating during nightfall as opposed to during the day. Alternatively, it might just mean that we can catch soldiers asleep during the raid, and thus in a lower state of readiness. That will give us valuable time to get into position and open fire while men are stumbling out of their bunks and grabbing their weapons. Thirdly, and what would be really lucky and really turn the odds in our favor, would be a scenario where the members of the encampment have sent out a foraging party or a raiding party themselves. If they've done that, that means the camp is significantly less populous than it might be otherwise. And that will allow us to defeat the enemy in detail. Or, for those of you who don't know what defeating the enemy in detail means, it will allow us to take multiple smaller fights as opposed to attempting to assault a superior enemy who has all of their infrastructure and their munitions concentrated in one area. Even if a deployed raiding or foraging party arrives back at the camp while we are still there, that way there's an ability on our side of the field to consolidate our attention. We'll have mopped up any enemy presence in the camp, and then we will have the advantage of the camp's defenses in taking care of the returning raiding party or foraging party. Now, I did not know if we would receive any of those advantages at the time, as of recording, when I was going into the raid. But now that we are watching together, let's see what happens. Your soldiers make their way deep into the woods, making every attempt to move undetected. It's not long before the sound of shouting and gunfire reaches you, and the breeze carries the smell coming from the field kitchen. This leaves little room for doubt. You found the Red training camp. You quickly assess the situation from the nearby hill. There are a few key positions defending the Red training camp. You observe plentiful ammunition and trucks delivering supplies. Destroying these targets and killing the commanding officer would hinder training of new recruits for some time. However, smoke appears on the horizon, indicating this isn't the only camp in the area. It seems the Reds may have reinforcements close by. This is your last chance to turn back. Well, that gives us a helpful piece of knowledge, but we are going to proceed, and because Josef Medzik is vengeful, he gains morale from our decision to go on the attack, despite the potential of multiple enemy reinforcing presences in the area.
Zdá se, že velká část rudé posádky tady není. Nejspíš mají zase něco za lubem. Naštěstí pro nás tu nechali velmi málo stráží. Jestli kvůli nadutosti nebo neschopnosti, to nevím.
So,
pro nás
my
je to
hunch
dobrá
was correct.
příležitost vpadnout do
The
jejich
enemy did
tábora.
send out
Zásoby, peníze, zbraně.
party,
Co
likely
můžete
raiding
seberte,
innocent
co ne,
villagers.
zničte.
And this has meant
Hledejte
that
hlavně
the
dokumenty.
actual
V
camp
naší
itself
těžké
is not
situaci
well
mohou mít
guarded.
přesné informace větší cenu než zlato. Ale opatrně. Tyhle kopce jsou pro kulometná hnízda dokonalé. Takové pozice bychom
So
měli
Captain
raději
Longer has given us a
obsadit. A
sit rep
nezdržujte
of the
se.
camp.
Těžko říct, jak dlouho budou rudí
And
pryč.
the three main things that we need to do are steal documents in order to acquire some enemy intelligence that will be very, very useful for future endeavors. We need to capture the surrounding hills because they likely have artillery and enemy pillboxes, like there. We just got vision on an enemy howitzer. That is priority number one. Tactically, we need to neutralize that artillery so that we can move through the camp with impunity. And then the commanding officer is present, according to what Captain Longer told us. So being able to neutralize the enemy officer will hamper the enemy's command and control ability after the fact. So if we can accomplish all three of these objectives, we will have denied the enemy the use of their artillery, we will have compromised their intelligence, and we will have hindered their command and control capabilities. So I'm taking my squad up this hill.
Rozumím.
The hope is that I will be able to move up behind the artillery through a narrow approach, and I will be able to take out the crew and gain the advantage of a hill without having fired a shot. Now, as we've seen from previous episodes, I am not necessarily the best at stealth, but we will see what happens. I'm just getting my men into position here. I'm going to attempt a synchronized stealth kill. So I'm moving, I believe, Josef and Jan. I'm going to move them up behind the artillery crew. They have no idea what's going on. They are trying to observe a different avenue of approach. We've come from the opposite side. So I'm just going to position them here. And we'll see how it goes. And to my surprise, the enemy artillery itself detonates when I get a stealth kill on it, which is I find funny. I also find it funny that the troops that are mere meters away did not hear the sound of their artillery combusting. But no matter, we're not going to complain. I am not one to question Providence as a commander in a very precarious position. So I'm moving up my men. The hope is to get a favorable angle on the sentry while simultaneously disabling that enemy telegraph post. Because that telegraph post will enable them to, within minutes, inform their friends and neighboring camps that there is an enemy presence in the area, and we do not want that. We want to neutralize enemy communications posts as quickly as possible. So I've sent up Magdalena, and she has been able to successfully pistol whip the sentry. However, she was unfortunately spotted. So I'm going to send all of my men forward as quickly as possible with the hopes that we can get rid of that sentry before he telegraph wires his friends for help.
Postarám se o to, pane.
To that end, I command Pavel to bayonet charge the telegraph post, and we will just barely get the sentry before he can radio for help, which is huge.
Rozkazy, pane! Připravenější už nebudu.
And then I have Peter, our other rifleman, also bayonet charge.
Pane!
This will either root that sentry out of cover, or, it just caused him to move positions, or he would just have gotten caught in the bayonet charge. So now he has no idea what to do. He's alone, he's outnumbered. He's just outgunned here and outflanked. So now it's just a question of mopping up this position.
Zaujímám pozici.
Rozkazy, pane!
Like that. No sweat.
Všude klid. Prozatím. Pane! Ano, pane! Ano. Rozkazy? Ano. Ano?
So now that we've captured this hill,
Vaše rozkazy,
I'm
pane?
sending out my men to loot ammunition and resources.
Připravenější už nebudu.
And I see a heavy machine gun here, though I don't think that we'll get the chance to use it. Now it's just a question of
Poslouchám.
using this hill to our
Podívám se.
advantage to scout out the rest of the surrounding terrain.
Tak se podíváme, co tam je.
Nepřítel!
Pane, podívám se. Pane? Ano, pane.
This is why, in my humble opinion, Scout
Tu, na
is probably
pozici.
the best single combat role
Rozumím.
for the kind of position that we found ourselves in.
Jdu.
In the game as a whole, it's probably the best
Tak se
combat role in the
podíváme, co
game.
tam je.
Vidím
Now, does
nepřítele.
the Scout have the same sort of firepower as the machine gunner, healing
Musím se
capabilities as the
někam
medic,
schovat.
tactical flexibility like the rifleman? No. However, gaining vision and line of sight to be able to position a force optimally,
Rozkazy,
especially
pane.
when we are facing a superior force
Připraven.
in a scenario of asymmetrical warfare, that is
Musím
huge.
se někam schovat.
And the Scout enables the rest of our men to, or the rest of our legionaries rather, because we have women here,
Pane,
it enables them to perform at the best of
Hledám
their
kryt.
ability. And any sort of force multiplying
zaujímám pozici.
utility in a game like this is just huge, and that's what the Scout gives us.
Ano, podívám se.
So there's this little series of houses
Jdu do
that
krytu.
has a few sentries. According to our defeat in detail mentality here, I have surrounded this
Připravený.
group of houses so that we can take out these
Rozkazy,
sentries
pane.
here and now, rather than risk them going to join a larger, more
Když
risky
to prověřit, ano.
combat later.
Poslouchám.
So I've attempted to bait
Hledám
the
kryt.
enemies into a unfavorable position,
Zaujímám pozici.
and now we are opening fire from behind hard cover, and we're sending the rest of our force around to flank. And
Připraven.
as you can
Hledám
see,
kryt,
that worked out
jasná
very
věc.
well. We caught the enemy out in the open
Tak se pozrieme, čo tam
and
je.
badly outnumbered, and that enabled us to dispatch the enemy. I don't even think anyone
Áno,
got hit in that
presúvam
exchange.
sa.
I think Alfred might have taken a graze, and Peter may have as well.
Rozumiem.
But besides that, that was a
Skryjem sa.
very, very favorable trade for us. So now I'm just moving up my men. I have them back in silent mode
Overím
because we
pozíciu.
are probably coming up on a
Vidím nepriateľa.
significant portion of the enemy force. This is what I was worried about. We have an entrenchment, we have a heavy machine gun, we have sandbags and various barricades, a pillbox. We need to proceed very
Vidím
carefully
nepřítele.
here. Because if the enemy finds out that we're here before we can get within their defensive screen, then we are going to be fighting uphill for the whole rest of the mission.
Ano. Rozumím. Podívám se.
Nepřítel!
Už jdu. Jdu na pozici.
So I've moved my men past the barbed
Jsem
wire,
připravena. Dobře.
and now I'm going to attempt to get
Rozkazy, pane?
some stealth kills on the sentries who are
Poslouchám.
across this
Hledám
dirt
kryt.
road from the rest of the enemy.
Připraven, pane. Jdu
I can
do
now
krytu.
confidently say that we have them outflanked because we are now gaining access
Rozkazy?
to that
Já
heavy
se o to
machine gun
postarám.
pillbox. We can use
Připraven?
that weapon system against
Když
them,
myslíte,
and we also have the advantage of hard cover in those
Vaše
sandbags.
rozkazy, pane?
So the
Samozřejmě.
natural advantage of the enemy's defenses have now been effectively neutralized,
Polština.
Povídejte.
but we've potentially been spotted.
Za republiku!
Luče
Jsem připravena.
So I've sent Camila
Za
and
republiku!
wait, have I sent Camila or Peter in the bayonet charge?
Rozkazy?
All
Ochutnej
right,
naši
yeah, I'm sending in
ocel!
Camila, and she successfully gets the bayonet charge,
Povídejte!
which, despite dispatching that soldier,
Starám se o to.
it has also
Ano.
alerted the camp. So I
Jsem
have
připravena.
quickly sent Magdalena around
Rozkazy?
to mount that
Ano,
heavy machine gun.
dobře, jdu tam.
That heavy machine gun
Připraveníš
is
už na
out in
boku.
the open on the opposite side. It does not have sandbags protecting it from both flanks.
jdu do krytu.
However, it does have a shrapnel shield, so that should give her adequate protection as she maneuvers that machine gun around.
Rozkazy?
And she starts engaging the enemy with that heavy machine gun at point-blank range, and it has fantastic results. Yeah, that heavy machine gun is a hard counter to any enemy in cover. So the fact that we were able to usurp that resource from the enemy was huge. Yeah, even though we have alerted now a significant portion of the camp, we have done so on our terms in a very favorable position.
Vaše rozkazy, pane?
So now I have enemies
Jdu do krytu.
trickling in from the road. Yeah, now there are two more. But now I have the rest of my force once again behind sandbags, and this will force the Red Army sentries who are garrisoning the camp to move over open ground in an attempt to engage us, and it has fantastic results. Once again, we have neutralized a significant portion of the enemy in detail while losing nobody and barely even taking any damage. Not even Magdalena, who had to move through open ground to commandeer that heavy machine gun, she didn't even take any damage. So now I'm just going to send my men through this portion of the camp with impunity to collect any resources as we please.
Poslouchám, jako by se stalo.
I'm very happy with our results because
Rozkazy, pane?
we are very importantly gaining a huge amount of fuel while we are making our way through this camp and raiding resources. We are already up to 67 fuel, and for any observant viewers who were watching me organize our squad prior to deployment, we were only at 17 fuel by the time we started this mission.
Těžká zbraň.
So we were critically low on fuel.
Ano, pane.
So I'm maneuvering my men up this hill in order to capture this lookout post. However, I make a critical blunder because I turn my men off silent mode while in range of that artillery, which means I start shooting at it immediately, which is just not good for me. They are slowly maneuvering around that howitzer. I had so much tension and anxiety when I was playing the footage that you were watching. And as well, you could hear that telegraph tone. It gives me concern that the enemy has now radioed for help while we are engaging the artillery. Fortunately, we were able to destroy the artillery right before they were able to maneuver and fire. Yeah, right now I'm incredibly concerned because that little telegraph Morse prompt that you all heard, that almost certainly means that the enemy radioed for help. So we are now on borrowed time.
Rozkazy, pane?
However, if nothing else,
Jsem na cestě.
we have now effectively denied the enemy their use of artillery. So even if we decide to retreat now, we have gained a fairly significant strategic advantage. So I'm now maneuvering my men
Pane, to nejde.
on to the eastern side of the camp. I just wanted to test out the purpose of these drivable vehicles. I think it's just something that can help us maneuver our men around the large map quickly. But since I want to move slowly and methodically through the area anyway, I really don't find it very useful. So I decided to take my legionary out of the truck, and I foolishly do so out of silent mode, which once again attracts the attention of the enemy. So I just decide to run my legionnaire back, and hopefully this will bait that lone enemy soldier into a 10 versus 1 without alerting his friends. It's a slim
Zaujímám
chance,
pozici.
but at least it keeps our men in a favorable
Som
position.
tu.
And our
Ano,
gambit seems to have
tak se
paid off. It
podíváme,
doesn't look
co
like
tam je.
anyone else
Rozkazy? Ano.
is trailing in after him.
Povídejte. Ano, pane.
Rozkazy, pane? Podívám se. Ano. Vidím nepřítele.
And now I'm very wary because that lookout tower is occupied by an enemy scout who, if he is as deadly
Hledám kryt.
as our own scouts, presents a significant threat.
Vidím nepřítele.
So I am seeking to just completely circumvent him for as long as possible. I have all of my men on silent mode again, or all of my legionnaires. And now that I see a sentry right by the telegraph post, I decide it's
Ano,
best
měním pozici.
to maneuver all of my men slowly behind this long sandbag emplacement.
Čekám. Jdu do krytu.
It will hopefully enable me to catch anyone who is
Co se
in
děje?
that
Do
little
krytu.
enclave in a pincer maneuver, where I have them facing multiple angles of fire from my legionnaires.
Zde. To je lepší možnost. Ano.
So
Vidím
for
nepřítele.
that reason, I have taken 2 of my riflemen and my machine gunner, so a significant amount of
Zaujímám
firepower.
pozici.
I'm taking them around this little water
Hledám
tower,
kryt.
Nepřítel.
and it has given us
To je
vision
lepší možnost.
on a sentry
Ano.
who is guarding
Ano.
an
Tak se
opposite avenue of
podíváme,
approach.
co tam je.
And I use my scout to gain vision
Rozkazy,
on the
pane.
enemy commanding
Zaujímám
officer,
pozici.
who is casually strolling through the outpost,
Vaše
seemingly
ruce,
totally
samozřejmě.
oblivious to the massive exchange of gunfire that happened just down the hill.
Zaujímám pozici.
Poslouchám, pane. Hezky opatrně.
Ano.
So what I'm hoping to do is get a stealth kill on the
Jdu
sentry
do krytu.
near the telegraph, and then consolidate around the radio,
Připraven, pane.
or around the telegraph, so that no one else can radio in for help.
Poslouchám.
Za republiku!
Čekám.
Now we've already attracted the attention of this sentry on the opposite
Nebude to
side,
čekat.
so I'm gonna try to bayonet charge him if possible.
Rozkazy, pane?
Musím se někam schovat.
Povídejte. Za republiku!
And now I've realized in all likelihood the officer is going to
Připravenější už.
find us, so I've decided to do, instead of a sync stealth kill, a synced bayonet charge. And it seems to have paid off.
Vaše rozkazy, pane?
Ano. Ano.
Ano. Zaujímám pozici.
So now I have my
Rozkazy,
men
pane.
moving through the areas that we have successfully cleared of any enemies. I am now looting anything I can get my hands on. We're going to take care of that scout. And we're also going to disable that telegraph.
Pane! Jsem na cestě!
Čekám. Postarám se o to.
Podíváme se, co je uvnitř. To zvládnu.
Ano? Ano. Poslouchá, žádný problém.
Zdá se, že se blíží velká nepřátelská hlídka. Důrazně doporučuju zaútočit.
And now
Pokud
that
máme
patrol
stále
is
výhodu
returning.
překvapení. V žádném případě nechceme, aby zavolali posily.
Kapitáne, našli sme poľné rozkazy, hlásenia a žiadosti o rekvizíciu.
Ukažte. Zdá se, že
So we have
lidi
now
sem byli
effectively
nasazení
won.
kvůli nějaké
We could
speciální
flee if we
misi.
wish.
Dobrý bože. To snad není
because
pravda.
at this point we have neutralized the
Tohle hlášení
artillery,
prakticky
we
naznačuje
have
genocidu.
eliminated the enemy officer, and we have gathered enemy intelligence.
Připraven. Rozumím.
However, just to solidify my victory, and to thin out as much of the enemy presence in this area of operations as we can, I'm deciding to pull back and consolidate, and effectively lay an ambush for the enemy as they enter their own camp.
Rozkazy? Postarám se o to.
Ano?
Povídejte.
So as you can see, I'm now looking for areas of hard cover that I can place my men behind. I was really excited about the opportunity to potentially occupy that, what looks like a French FT, but the tank it looks to be in a state of disrepair, so sadly we can't occupy it. And it's at this point that I discover a pillbox and enemy entrenchment further north, and I decide that that is probably a more favorable position from which to engage the enemy. So instead of hanging back, I decide to move up.
Poslouchám. Hledám kryt. Ano, jdu do krytu.
And then I have one rifleman who I've sent wide to take care of that sentry, so that we don't have any distractions when the main force arrives. And he didn't even get a shot off.
Jsem připraven. Ano, pane.
Now I just have my medic collecting medical kits. I'm taking whatever spare time I can and maximizing it. So some of the soldiers who were wounded earlier, I have them making use of that medical station
Vaše rozkazy,
so that we don't
pane.
waste any medical kits.
Moudrá volba.
And now that Peter's back in position,
Jsem na cestě.
I'm gonna have people bracket that heavy machine gun, and I believe I'm gonna have Magdalena embark on that heavy machine gun, since we really don't need a medic on standby at the moment. We just need someone, a competent pair of hands who can use that heavy MG, and that will definitely be Magdalena. She made great use of it last time.
Zaujímám pozici. Ano?
Jsem připravena.
Yeah. I'm just biding my time.
Měním pozici.
I have them all on silent mode, so we can all have them go loud at once they're within range.
Jsem tu.
Kdo здесь?
And I'm also going to see if I can
Ano,
use one of Dusan's grenades. But Magdalena decides, no, I want blood. And she just fires indiscriminately. And I have her target that explosive box
Rozkazy, pane.
of munitions, and it works wonders. It automatically severely wounds several men at once.
Tak to by bylo. Jejich velící důstojník se vrací se svou osobní ochrankou. Nejspíš už ho přestalo bavit
And
terorizovat
now,
civilisty.
not only the commanding deputy, but the commanding officer himself has arrived. So that officer that we got rid of before, I was mistaken. He wasn't the commanding officer of the camp. He was the deputy, or the commissar. And so now we actually have a sizable enemy force who is now aware of our presence, attempting to get into position. And as you can see, it is just not going to go well for them, because now we have a full force of entrenched legionaries who are just able to open up and wreak havoc. As you can see, the enemy is just scrambling for cover, but it's far too
Musíme najít
late.
cestu ven, abychom se mohli vrátit k vlaku.
Poslouchám, pane. Snad to bude stát za to.
I believe the enemy officer dropped a first aid kit.
Přesně tak.
So now that the
Podíváme
camp
se,
is
co je
effectively
uvnitř.
empty,
zaujím. Ano.
we are going to just continue to loot
Povídejte.
indiscriminately,
Ano, pane.
get everything we can.
Poslouchám. Už jdu.
I'm just sending a rifleman down to scout the road, make sure that there aren't any other threats we need to worry about.
Ano? Přesně tak, pane.
Pane, jdu na pozici. Ano? Když něco najdu, můžu si to nechat, pane? Poslouchám. Jsem na cestě. Rozkazy, pane? Rozumím.
All right, and I believe that is
Ano, pane.
all she wrote. So I am now taking all of my men, or all of my legionnaires. I need to stop saying that because we have women in our force. We have 8 out of 10. We're just waiting for one of our riflemen and Magdalena because they were behind because they were looting.
Povídejte.
All right, now that we aren't leaving anyone behind, we are exfiltrating the area. And that was a very, very successful mission, if I do say so myself. We got a couple of promotions right off the bat before even awarding any medals. So I decided to award medals to Alfred Kraus because his intelligence gathering ability was just fantastic. I decided to award a medal to Magdalena because she did fantastic work on that heavy machine gun, and that brings her to level 3. And let's see, who do I give my third medal to? Oh, yeah, I got frustrated there because Dusan was just barely a pixel below level 3 with that medal. So we decided to award it to Peter instead because he did, or not, we decided to give it to Dusan anyway. But Peter did do a fantastic job with his bayonets, his bayonet charges. All of our riflemen did extremely well. And we got a huge amount of resources, including a bowl of goulash, which I found humorous at the time. We just decided to saran wrap a bowl of goulash and leave the camp. A crowd of people approach your train as your squad comes back. A woman pushes her way to the front to speak to you. We hear you destroyed the Reds' training camp. Many of our men enlisted and died there due to the horrible conditions. They've moved the recruitment to another location now. Now, Yosef is initially remorseful because he assumes that he's killed some of the members of these civilians' families, but this woman simply responds, they were fools for trusting the Reds would fulfill their promises. They would have died anyway, by your hand or another, in some stupid fight. And because they're so grateful that we have destroyed an enemy camp that was antagonizing them, they offered us our share of either food or fuel, and I chose fuel. All right, we have leveled up all of our troops and assigned skill points. I think that is going to do it for this episode. The road to Penza and the mission in Penza itself, we are going to leave for next episode. Regardless, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Please be on the lookout for part 6. I've been loving recording this series. Please do let me know how you feel about the new format. If you think that it's engaging, if you think it's high quality, if you think the commentary is better. I want to know how to do better. Right now, the channel is very small, very, very small, and I have a relatively modest experience doing anything involving video editing, video production, and I want to deliver as much quality as possible, and hopefully this new format is a step further towards accomplishing that. Regardless, thank you so much for watching. We will see you for part 6. Goodbye.